Good evening. Tonight we are with Dean Francis. Dean, good to see you.
Good to see you, Sam.
Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
And we just watched together Drown. Very, very impressive experience. And I call it like a good slap.
Yeah.
And I was thinking every prime minister before going to office, and Malcolm Turnbull just going to office, should watch this movie
Yes.
before taking office.
That's right.
This is our mission.
Absolutely.
And talking about the slap, I know the filmmaking is such a complex process. You have an idea and you evolve through the team. Is the result very close to the level of slap you intended to give?
The level of slap. Yes, it is. I mean, on this particular production, I was the director, the cinematographer, the editor with Tom Gooden, the producer, the writer with Stephen Davis. It was a very hands-on experience for me. So there wasn't a lot of that filtering that goes on in a production. As much as it was collaborative between myself and the cast, it was a very pure vision. And the reason I chose to do it in a very low-budget setting and using the methodology that I did was so that it could be a very personal film for me and a very immediate, hands-on experience. And I think that comes across, hopefully.
It's pretty close to your initial vision.
Yeah.
And still close to the play, or you took quite some liberties from the play? It's pretty close to the play.
In some ways it's very close to the play in the sense that a lot of the dialogue sequences from the beach at night are basically straight from the play, sort of edited down a little bit. But the play was really only 3 people on a beach, one of which is unconscious the whole time and doesn't speak.
Okay.
So
which one is unconscious?
Phil.
Is unconscious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really say anything, I don't think, in the play. So the challenge in adapting it was to broaden out the world, and so probably just under half the film is stuff that I invented and worked on with Stephen, the playwright, to create. And of course, what we did is I wanted to answer the question of how these people get to this situation that they're in on the beach, where they're very close to killing one another. And so to answer that question, we sort of had to really go back and look at who these characters are and what had happened to them, not just in the last year of their relationship, but going further back, into their childhoods and things like that. Some of the stories that are told verbally by the characters in the play, we dramatize. So as much as I think it's very true to the spirit of the play, there's a lot of stuff that is not in the play that has been invented as an embellishment of the story.
So one element from Boys Grammar is the aggression in the shower. So it must be one of your nightmares, because I think it's twice in the movie. It's very close to the Boys Grammar scene.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the male locker room is a very interesting space to me cinematically, because it's a space in which men kind of fortify themselves against the possibility of homoeroticism, because of their inherent vulnerability, being that they're naked, etc. You tend to find the locker rooms are a site of aggression and angst and imbalance. And
pleasure and
pain.
Right.
That's right, and it's that fine line between eroticism and violence. And of course, the idea that both films, Boys Grammar and Drown, explore, which is that when male sexuality, particularly male homosexuality, is repressed, often it is expressed through the language of violence. And of course there are some direct references to Boys Grammar in Drown. One of them is that Matt Levett and Anthony Phelan play father and son in both films. And of course there's a shot that's actually directly taken from Boys Grammar, which is a tracking shot that follows Matt from the locker room into the toilets. But of course Matt's on the other side of the violence in Drown.
So he is the good guy in Boys Grammar.
He's the victim, yes. Yeah. And of course that's interesting too, because it reflects that cyclical nature of bullying. People who have been victims of bullying generally, grow up and they potentially become the perpetrators of bullying. So it was interesting that Matt, as an actor, took that full circle journey.
Because it becomes the norm when you're bullied.
Yeah.
Somehow. And actually, one of the strong aspects of Drown is the acting. Very, very strong performance from Matt. So it was not really an evolution of the character. As you said, it's a different character, but still you carried on working together. There was you reused some of your experience.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Matt and I, it was 10 years between the two films. We first met on that first film, Boys Grammar. So it felt like returning to the start of our creative relationship, exploring very similar ideas. There's certainly themes that I think Matt feels very passionately about, as do I. And of course, having worked together over such a long period of time and been friends, we had an instant trust with one another that I think allowed us to push each other into difficult territory, both creatively and emotionally, yeah.
I can imagine that for all the quite a lot of tough scenes, you must have had to work specifically and more like intimate. Was there a lot of crew when you were shooting the erotic and the violent scenes?
We tried to keep the crew to essential personnel only. During the sex scenes, it was literally me and the two actors and nobody else in the room. But look, Drown was a very agile film production unit for cost reasons and for efficiency, and also because I wanted to work with, I wanted to prevent things from coming between me and the actors. And that was another choice of mine behind operating the camera, was that when it's just you and the actor and there's just the camera there, it's a lot more immediate. It's a very different relationship than if you've got a whole camera department and everything. So yeah, it was a very lean and mean and quite unconventional shoot.
So you can achieve more organic, working with the actors. You didn't have to. Did you rehearse a lot those scenes, or you jumped directly into shooting them?
We didn't rehearse the scenes as much as we did a lot of rehearsal building character and improvising around some of the concepts within the scenes. I mean, some of the dialogue scenes, because the dialogue is sort of heightened and poetic, we needed to really understand the subtext and what everything meant. So we ran a few of those scenes, but so much of this film wasn't planned. I mean, a lot of the time I just stopped doing shot lists and things as well. I just would show up on the set and play the scene out with the actors and sort of see where the energy was and devise coverage a lot of the time on the fly. So it was a very, you'd never really get away with that on a lot of films. So it was a nice, refreshing process because it was very organic and for me, very intuitive.
Yeah. So that Matt Leavitt had the Heath Ledger. Is it Heath Ledger?
The Heath Ledger Scholarship. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's very good way forward for him.
It's very exciting to see. I mean, his work on Drown was unbelievably difficult for so many reasons, and when it pays off like that in the Heath Ledger Scholarship, we're just so proud of him. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's not only for him; it's for the whole team.
Well, I mean, Matt's obviously, Matt's been acting for a while, and it really is the leg up that he needs. We're really optimistic about his prospects in LA, and can't wait to see his star rise.
Yeah, the film itself had quite a lot of awards. I think you had 8 awards at the San Diego Film Out. So good result, and you're still in the festival tour, I believe, at the moment.
Yeah, we're in the thick of it. We're about to play Hong Kong and Taiwan. So it's good to be in Asia now, and a few more European festivals. We have a theatrical release in America right now, and then we're coming out in the US on iTunes at the end of the year, and then early 2016 we'll be releasing here in Australia in theatres, and then subsequently on VOD.
So you release in the US before your own country?
Yeah, well, I got to say, other countries have embraced Drown a lot more readily than this country has. I mean, one of the things is that here it's the only country in the world where it's rated R, so you have to be over 18 to watch it. Nowhere else in the world is that the case. But look, I think it's partly to do with the very conservative nature of the film industry in this country and the sad state of theatrical exhibition in this country. But I think as well, if you look at the countries where we've been really successful, like the United States and Germany, for example, these tend to be countries with much larger populations than Australia. So there's probably more diversity, and as a kind of a niche film, which some people would argue this is, can be serviced by distributors more readily than in a very small country.
Yeah. So Germany is usually more open on nakedness and violence.
Oh yeah, German cinema is, as we know, often very challenging, and German film audiences are incredibly literate and incredibly passionate about not just mainstream cinema, but very avant-garde films as well.
That's true. So you have the same problem as Love from Gaspar Noé. It's also R-rated.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, of course, this country has a terrible history of completely disproportionate censorship. And, you know, some people would argue that were Drown, you know, if Drown depicted the same sorts of things, but in a heterosexual context, then it wouldn't have been rated R. That is something that has been said. But, you know, it's very difficult. I mean, in other countries, for example, in America, the censorship is done by kind of randomly selected members of the general public, whereas, you know, here it's done by intellectuals and bureaucrats who are very often out of step with the values of the broader society.
Okay. So there will be a theatrical release here, but at the moment you can come here actually and watch the movie with Dean. You're still doing the intimate screening in your studio.
That's right, Friday nights in the basement cinema with an extended Q&A with myself and whichever members of the cast and crew we can drag in, and fantastic refreshments and a lot of stuff that you can not see anywhere else because we've dragged out a whole lot of deleted scenes and other bonus material.
Yeah, actually, I highly recommended it. It was a great experience. And after that, you're going to use Tug, I think, for the cinema on demand. It's already on the Tug system.
It's on the Tug system. We've got a lot of screenings coming up around the Gold Coast, Canberra and the Blue Mountains are the next ones. So if anyone wants to arrange a screening in their local cinema, they can by going to tug.com.au/drown.
Yeah. So if you all request the same cinema, you can screen it in a large cinema. So check even drownthemovie.com has the link on it.
It does, indeed. Yeah.
So thank you very much. It's great to see you.
Such a pleasure, Sam. Thank you for
All
taking
the
the
best.
time.
Thank you.